Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest is Ashlee Jankovich. She is a realtor and community leader based in Clarksville, Tennessee, specializing in military relocations near Fort Campbell. She co-hosts the Real Estate Table, a podcast focused on practical, low-cost marketing for agents. She is known for her creative approach to organic lead generation and is a frequent speaker at real estate conferences, sharing strategies that help agents grow sustainably and authentically. Ashlee, welcome onto the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. Wow, what an introduction.
Of course. And you are here with us today to talk a little bit about time saving and what agents are spending their time on that they don't need to be, maybe some different ways to rethink how we should be spending our time to get the most use out of it. But before we get started in that conversation, I'd like to hear a little bit more about you yourself, your journey, what's led you to real estate, and fill us in on what's got you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I got licensed in 2018. I've always been interested in real estate. My dad built houses. He was a carpenter. He renovated our house like my entire life. I don't even know that he ever finished. But that kind of, always piqued my interest. I was in new construction, sweeping as a kid and stuff like that. Bringing the guys lemonade. I thought that was like the coolest thing. But once I had kids, like most people who get into real estate, they're like, oh, I want to work on my own terms and my own time and be my own boss. And then you quickly realize you're working like 800 days a week and 700 hours a day. So it's like, but that's kind of why I got into it. I think that, throughout the years, I've learned to slow down a little bit. I feel like especially this year, because as a new agent, like I was the yes girl, and that's what wasted a ton of time for me. And I even wore that as a badge of honor. I was like, yes, I'm the yes girl. And that's not what you need to be going into real estate. So
yeah, no, so true. And we're going to get into that and how, we should be reframing and rethinking the way we're doing things. You're right, because there's so much in this industry. There's so much stigma around, we should be this way, or we should be presenting ourselves this way. We should be spending all this time on this, when really, if you're doing that, that might not be the best approach to have. And it's also, you said, so greatly that busy doesn't necessarily mean income or that we're closing more deals. Just because we're busy, it doesn't necessarily equate to, hey, money's flowing in and we're closing all these homes. Talk to us a little bit about that and maybe that stigma that's out there that, oh, we're so busy, that's such a badge of honor we need to wear. And that means we're just selling all these homes and doing such amazing things.
Well, if you think about it, when you run into a friend at the store, like, hey, how have you been? Oh, I've been so busy. It's almost something where we're just like, busy is what you need to be in order to be happy, to be successful, to be all these things. When really, as an agent, you can almost do your job in a window of hours and then move on with your day. If you have a structure to your day, that kind of helps with the busyness. But I also think, just like being the yes girl, being busy is something that agents kind of confuse with things that are going to make them money. Have you ever sat on your computer and talked to ChatGPT for hours about this content plan you're going to do, or the next listing XYZ you're going to do, and then you don't do anything with it? And then you're busy for hours and you came up with a great plan, but how are you going to execute it? And so I think a lot of agents just waste time on that busyness of what they think is going to make them income, but really getting in front of people is what agents need to be doing.
Yep, so true. And going back to that saying yes, so we do that a lot. Even though we might know it's not right, even though we know hey, this isn't the right fit for me, but, I need the business anyway, or whatever, story you might tell yourself as to why, you should be saying yes to that. And so much of that is setting those boundaries and placing higher standards on the work that we're doing and how, how it's being done and the type of clients and consumers we want to work with. How have you managed to kind of find those boundaries and set those standards? What's your approach to that?
So I used to, like, every lead, I would chase it until forever, right? So that gets exhausting. My kids got a little bit older. They're into sports and things. And so my schedule tightened up and I realized, like, I'm not going to get these years back. And so I need to adjust my schedule, my workload to fit my life. And so some of the things that I do is I'm vetting clients. I don't need to work with everyone. I want to work with the right people who want to work with me. Like in my early years, like I've fired people and people have fired me. If we're not a good fit, we're not a good fit. And we shouldn't, like, if you're dating someone, it's not a good fit, you're not going to want to pursue to work it out. Right. So I think being able to accept failure as like a learning point versus, I didn't make this deal, I didn't close this one, like that stinks. It's not that. It's a learning opportunity. Hey, I can't work with XYZ, or maybe Susie Q can take this kind of client. So I started to set the boundaries. I let my clients know when I'm working, when I'm available. And that includes like phone calls and texts at night. So there are certain things, if it's an emergency, I'll respond to you. I may heart your message and respond in the morning. Like, I've seen it, I'm alive, but I'll respond to you in the morning. And I think the more you verbalize like what your time is, it gives you a value for your time. That's something that you don't really necessarily see. Like, hey, I'm only available in this time. And your clients will say, wow, her time's so valuable. She only has this 1 hour for us, or whatever it is. And so you're valuing your time and you're showing your clients you don't waste time. And then I also try to have a set process. I used to take buyer intake calls like in my car or at the grocery store, or wherever I was, because I'm like, speed to lead. We got to do this. Now I changed my process to, hey, I'm going to call you, but I'm going to talk to you and say, hey, I'm going to send you my calendar link. Book a time for a call where we can do a deep dive into your home search. And I'm going to ask a million questions from a questionnaire that I have. And I'm going to, don't tell them that, but I'm going to ask them all the questions from the questionnaire so I know what they're looking for. And it's the questions I know I need to ask so I don't forget anything. It professionalizes the whole system, basically.
It does. And it really almost elevates you and like the service you provided, and it's making you more valuable. Like no one wants a doctor that's available like 24/7, right? Like we would have red flags about that. Well, why are you working 24/7? Like, shouldn't you schedule your appointments for when, you have that dedicated time to spend, with your clients? And it's so true. It's not about like saying we're too good to handle something or like we're not going to deal with that. It's just about aligning ourselves with what works for us, I think, and becoming more intentional about us and the time we spend.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And if we don't do that and open that door to I'm available 24/7, that's when we get that burnout, right? That's when we start to slack. If we are not protecting ourselves, that's when things could fall through the cracks, or we're getting overwhelmed, or, we're not performing at the highest standard we might know we're able to because we haven't set those boundaries and we're just getting overwhelmed and burned out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I've been there multiple times, even though I'm talking and I'm still someone who like, I need to practice what I preach. And I think that really 2026 was my year of backstory. I was on a team for 7 years. This is kind of like my first year going out on my own. And so creating all my systems, I feel like has just like smoothed my process, smoothed it. It's, set in stone. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm locked in. When I get on these calls, I don't worry about what am I going to say. Even as an experienced agent, I still like a plan,
Absolutely. And I think that is, such a common theme. It doesn't matter if you're a new agent entering the business, if you're seasoned. I know there's seasoned realtors that still feel this way and still feel that pressure. Like I have to be saying yes to everything. Like I have to be giving of myself 24/7. So I think that's something that can apply no matter where you are in your career, is that it's so important. Don't be afraid of it. I know so much of saying yes comes out of the fear of if you don't, and learning how to ignore that fear and telling that voice, like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to say no. Like you don't have to say yes to everyone.
Yes. Yep. And it just means that the things you are saying yes to are going to be so much more well taken care of, and you're going to be able to provide such a higher service, when you are being conscious of that.
Yeah.
And another thing that, we've seen, you mentioned the chasing those new leads and prospecting. And finding those prospects. Cause we've all been there when it's the client who's like, oh, they're not going to be ready for like till next year. They're just like starting out. How have you kind of managed that? Cause I think that goes in along with the saying yes and saying no, knowing when to do that is aligning yourself with those prospects who are going to be beneficial to spend our time on.
Yeah. I rely heavily on my CRM. And that's a lot of where I get my leads. I run a Facebook group in our area, and I do specialize in military relocation. So people are moving here who have never been here. They know nothing about the area. They're forced to move here from the Army. And so like one thing I do a lot of is like lead magnets. So those people all come in through a lead magnet, say maybe it's like my relocation guide. It's everything about my town. So if somebody, wants that, the questions that they have to answer are, when are you moving here? We call it in the Army PCSing. When are you PCSing? And it'll say like 3 to 6 months, 1 to 3 months, 0 to 30 days. So I know, okay, these people are moving like tomorrow and I need to get in front of them now. And so I think that specific lead magnet helps me because it gives me a time frame. The thing with those are you just have to know what your audience is looking for. So like, for example, I did one where I handed out like a school calendar just for the school my kids go to. And so I got all these people and I'm like, all right, well, these people have kids. So now my email marketing is focused towards like, hey, these are some of the events going on this weekend. The schools are doing physicals on this day. And so now they're getting like different marketing for me. And it has nothing to do with real estate, but my email signature has my real estate on there. So it's kind of like you're sprinkling it in, but you're trying to talk to them as people before, you start talking business.
I love that. And you mentioned that in the beginning about like, this is where we are good at and what we're good at. This is where we thrive, is building those relationships and knowing each other, on that personal level before we're even talking about buying or selling. And that's what this time management, that's what learning what to say yes to and what to say no to really allows you to do, is to focus on that, come up with targeted things you want to be communicating to, potential clients. I think that is such a smart way to kind of approach it, is, hey, let me focus on connecting with them on a human level, and the deal will come, after we have kind of that personal connection. I think that's so smart.
Yeah. And I also focus a lot on like connecting clients to community, because again, nobody knows the area. So like, I know when I first had kids, I hadn't lived here very long and was like kind of new to the mom thing. And I was like, hey, I know I just met you, but can you be like my kid's emergency contact, because you don't know anyone. And so you're just like, hopefully there's never an emergency. Like, does this person have their driver's license? But that's what it is. And it's so important to just connect, like, hey, who's your pediatrician? What dentist do you like? Where's your favorite place to grab a beer? Like, those are the things that your people want to know, and be the local expert.
Yep, that's such a great way to show off your skills and be the go-to person, especially for new people coming into the area, being able to say like, hey, call me if you need this. Where do you get your hair done? Where do you get your nails done? That stuff is like so important and what people are going to need, is as they're entering into a new area. And is this all stuff too that you put in this buyer consultation? So I know this is something that's super important. It might be somewhat new. We're about, 2-ish years out of the settlement now. So we're still, hopefully we're doing better with those consultations, but still maybe be learning and reforming that. Is that something you include in that? How do you approach those buyer consults, and what are you putting into that? Because that is such an important part of this time-saving process too.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely bring up the commission thing. It's at the end, because I think that for me, whenever I send a document, for the most part, if I can't like quickly explain it on a call or a text, I'll like a purchase and sale listing agreement. I'm recording my screen, going through the contract, like we're talking right now. And so I'll tell them like, hey, there's a part on the contract that, commits you to a commission if the seller's not willing to pay. But I service a different kind of market with military. A lot of military families, they're either young or they don't have a ton of money saved up. So like my goal for me, part of my pitch is, hey, I'm going to try to get that covered by the seller. Like, I don't want you to pay me anything, kind of thing. And so I think just being really transparent, like people have complimented me a lot this year on just being open and honest about it. Like, I'm like, hey, your lender may request me to amend this buyer's rep if the commission doesn't, match or whatever. And that's okay. And we can do that. And so I think just And it sets you up, right? So, like you're asking all these questions. So, okay, they're pre-approved. You don't need to send them lenders. Hey, they're moving in 6 months. You don't need to call them every day. So it's just like using the data that you can get from them and just making them feel comfortable, because I do work with a lot of first-time home buyers. And even when I was a first-time home buyer, I was like, we can't buy a house. Like, we don't have any money. Like, we're young, like all the things, like everything, every normal thing that someone's scared about as a buyer. And so I think just like easing people's mind, making them feel comfortable, being relatable, is really important in those early conversations.
Yep, it is. And I think it can set you up so much to deal with the things that happen after that contract is signed, after the consult is presented, and after you guys agree on all that you're agreeing to. That can save you so much time on the back end to be able to say, hey, here's when I'm available to call me. Hey, here's when I'm available to discuss this. Like, laying all that out in the beginning. Talk about like saving time. I feel like that is such a great way to lay out the entire process so that everyone knows what the expectations are right out the gate. There's no surprises and everything is kind of clear from the beginning. I think that's probably saves so much time in the long run when we think about the trajectory of a deal.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised too, if you just create like a little graphic on Canva, like, hey, these are my hours, or, just like a little bit about me or whatever it is. Maybe it's something you put in your, your buyer or seller book, but make it into something textable, like, hey, friendly reminder, these are when I'm available, or, whatever it is. These are the important dates of your transaction. Here's a quick graphic you can look. So there's different things that you can do to just kind of like ease the stress out of this situation.
So true. I think it just helps everyone feel so much more comfortable. Like, we're all on the same page, expectations are set, right at the beginning. And I love that. I think it's such a smart move to be able to work that into the consults and be having those consults on a regular basis. So smart,
Yeah.
to save a ton of time. Another thing that can be a big time suck is branding, right? And spending so much time, and everyone wants to be a marketing expert. And yes, we are. That's our part of our job as realtors, is to be really good at marketing, but we don't necessarily need to spend a ton of time on this or do it all, right? So what should our approach be as we're headed into branding and marketing? We don't need to do everything. We don't need to become an influencer. What's your approach to that? What's the most important concepts we should be focusing on when we're thinking about marketing?
I think you care more about your marketing than anyone else cares about your marketing. And I say that with love, because I did just kind of rebrand leaving the team that I was on. I kept it really black and white, or like the cream colors. And so it's very kind of neutral and kind of blends with anything. But I think that if you're going to worry about like your branding or your logo or whatever it is, really what's working right now is selling you as the person. What are you doing? What are you out seeing in your community? I think that, video is where it's at for social media. That's just where we've gone. And there's kind of no getting around it. And so people want to see your face. They want to hear your voice. And you may not like your face or your voice, but that's what you sound and look like. You know what I mean? That's just what it is. And so I think that, if you're spending all the time on the colors and the fonts, and like, it is important, it needs to be cohesive, but it shouldn't take up so much of your time. And here's the thing too, we're marketers, but we're not professional. Like, hire someone, hire someone from like a VA or someone in your community. Go to the local college and see if there's any graphic designer students who would want to take something on. I think it's just one of those things where you can get caught up in it for so long, and it takes up so much time where you could be out, prospecting or meeting with other people.
Yeah, no one's ever gotten hired because they said that's such an amazing logo. Like, I don't think Starbucks is selling coffee because their logo has a mermaid on it.
Yeah, exactly. Is she a mermaid? I don't even know. Like,
I don't know. Mermaid, like, goddess girl. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, you don't buy McDonald's for the M. It's just it is. Yeah.
Exactly. And I also think it's important too. And I love what you said about video. And if you are going to spend time somewhere, I agree with you. I think that's where you should be spending your time. As you mentioned, that's just the world that we're in now. But we don't have to be an influencer, right? And I think that persona, or that I have to be doing this every day. I mean, what should that look like? How much content should we be producing? I think it relieves people when we say, hey, we don't have to be an influencer in this space, but you should be showing off what you're good at and what your skills are.
Yeah, for sure. I think we get caught up in seeing influencers who have like these beautiful homes and they're perfectly staged and it looks like no one lives there. And you're like, how I can never video my own house, right? I think that people like that. Like, how many times have you watched a video of someone like cleaning their shower? Like, why? Why are we doing that? If you posted a video cleaning your shower, somebody might watch it. And that's the thing is like, you don't know what's going to stick. And so it might be, a beautiful mansion listing that you're showcasing, like, listing of the week, or maybe you're showing like, hey, this is an investment property. And if you did XYZ, you could bring the value up and make, whatever it is. I think it doesn't even have to be real estate. Like some of my best videos, one, I was like completely hot and sweaty, replacing my window screens. And I was like, hey, maintenance tip, because it's something I had to do anyway. So I'm like, why not just video it and make a post and say it was so easy, it took me 30 minutes or whatever. So I think just like little things like that. I know like a day in the life of a realtor does really well. And I'm not super consistent on posting on social media. Like I'll do really good for like a couple weeks and then I don't. And that's just being real. And so I think we get overwhelmed with, we need to post every day and we need to all this stuff. If you can commit to like, hey, just starting out, I'm going to post 2 times a week and it's going to be 1 lifestyle, 1 educational. I think once you start narrowing down what you want to talk about, I call it content pillars, then you know exactly what you're posting. So like Monday could be a motivation thing. Tuesday could be, listing of the week. Wednesday could be something, mortgages. It could be, just pick something and then just kind of stick to that cadence and just, find stuff to record. People watch dumb stuff. They'll watch your stuff too.
They will. And I think that's so smart. And when I was managing, social medias, I like to sit down like at the beginning of the week and schedule all my stuff out so that I'm like, it's done for the week. Like on Monday, I don't have to worry about this. Like I know my posts are going to go out when they need to be going out. And, I'm just in a management place at that point where I'm responding to comments and watching my DMs and things like that. I always loved that strategy so that you didn't have to worry about it throughout the week. You could focus on your other things and knowing that that's kind of going to be on autopilot, and it just becomes a more checking in and making sure things are running smoothly. And I know we mentioned too about always including that call of action, right, in our posts, and making sure whether we're posting an educational video, whether it's changing out your window screens, that we are telling people to do something, right? Like DM, let me know, here's the reach out. Is that something kind of you made a part of your strategy too? And that's a great way to kind of get those leads and conversions.
Yeah, I do that a lot on the lead magnets, like comment home and I'll send you the details, or comment, whatever it is. And then they can get the link to the guide. And then I kind of grab the emails and things like that. So definitely love interacting in the comments though, because they say, when you post, as I was a scheduler too, but then they were saying, you need to engage like 10 minutes before and after posting. So I'm like, okay, if I'm just scheduling, it's just going out whenever I tell it to. So I've tried different things. I've played around. The best thing is to just post, whether it's scheduled or not, post and tell them where to go or what to do. Follow me for more, whatever it is. They need to know what to do next.
Yep, they do. And that's a great way to show up your expertise, post, the park you're at, the coffee shop you stop by. That's a great way too, to engage and be involved in your local community and get the word out there. Tagging locations. I know like that's realtor safety a little bit, but I think that can have its own benefits on its own, is, showing people where you are, and posting after the fact too, which I think is something, you don't have to always be live or showing what you're doing in real time. You can say here, I was here this weekend or something like that. I think all that's really great.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be there right now. Like I used old content. We all have content sitting in our phone right now that you can post something, anything.
Yeah, so true. So we know that agents fail because they're working on the wrong things. They're not protecting their time. What have you seen as the biggest risk or biggest mistake that happens, or what should we be conscious of that if we aren't protecting our time, that we aren't focusing on these practices we talked about today? What could be the downfall and the consequence if we're not protecting our time?
Oh gosh. I mean, a lot of things: sleep deprivation, burnout. You may start to just not even want to be in real estate anymore. I got to that point last year where I was just completely burnt out, and I'm like, felt like I was running with my head cut off like all the time. And it really is, it can just be detrimental to your life, honestly, if you don't manage your time. Because this job can take so much time away from you without even realizing it. You could be driving a buyer out, all weekend. And then they just, we're not moving here. So, and that's out of your control, but it's still, when you look back, you're like, man, I missed XYZ this weekend, or I didn't get to sleep in, or whatever it is, whatever is like, important to you. I think that it can easily suck the time out of your life, and you just don't get that back,
Yeah, so true. And I think there's so much in the long run that you can miss out on too. If you're spending time in the wrong place, then that means the things that you should be spending time on are going to get neglected. And that's kind of what we want to avoid. And hopefully you've shared some amazing tips on what we should be focusing on and how to do it. Is there anything we didn't cover? Any other areas you're seeing agents kind of waste that time in? Any other areas we should be focused on, or making sure that we are, steering in the right direction with?
I think if you can just, a couple things. Be a contributor to social media and not just a consumer. So make sure you're engaging with people, posting your own things. But I think just having like a set schedule of what you're going to do, like name out your tasks the day before. And really, real estate is not that different day to day, right? Like in the morning, I tell like my mom, she's always like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing my computer work. So the morning I'm checking my emails, I'm catching up on transactions, and I'm calling people and stuff. And then by the afternoon, I can go to the gym, I can get my kids, and I can be done, So I think just having a rhythm and creating a system, and it may take a second. You may have to call someone, phone a friend to, ask what they're doing, but just create a system. And I promise you, like everything just smooths out and it becomes so much more seamless.
Yeah, it really does. There's a smart way to do it. You've shared it. And I think when you're doing it well, it can open you up to that flexibility that you talked about, that you love so much about this career. And I know that so many other parents and moms love about this career is that it is offering you that flexibility. It is offering you that opportunity to be more present, to be a mom, to be with children and life moments. And I think when you do this well, and you've, done it, and you're a perfect example of that, that's when that magic can happen, and this career can really work for you and make it be what you want it to be. And that's what I think is really cool about this industry and what we get to do.
Yeah. And my kids' friends think I'm famous. They're like, you were on a sign. And I love it. I think it's funny. I'm like, I am famous. Okay.
I am. That's why you should listen to me and do your chores when I tell you to do it. All that
exactly.
Well, this has been amazing, Ashlee. I want to thank you so much for joining me, giving us your time management tips. I know that there's something in here that we could apply and take with us as we're finished listening, but I want to thank you again for your time and for sharing all this wealth of knowledge with us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week. We'll talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.